Black and African American, um, Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islanders. Now, I'm wondering if they were thinking that maybe they were considering them as being Asian, or Philippine people, were they considered as being Asian to be attacked like that? Karen, your thoughts?
It's possible based on their facial features. But here's the biggest problem with America is we we have the media is failing America. When they tell a story, we have so many resources out here, we can't decipher what is actually fact from fiction. And when they cover a story, I don't know if you all have noticed, they give you bits and pieces of it, but when you dig deeper, the story is something different. And so far as Asian hate is concerned, we have a lot of politicians who are comfortable expressing their dislike of people who don't look like them.
Mm.
And last year, during the whole pandemic, we were so busy blaming people, we weren't even giving out the proper information about the whole virus. What is it? This virus, why it's called COVID-19, is because it appeared in 2019. When it hit America, when he said China, 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 it's like, what about China? Like, the media never delved deeper. And so far as Asian hate is concerned, we're always going to select a group of people to target when something goes not right. When we had 9/11, all Middle Eastern people were horrible people. Hispanics, when they came to America, some came legally, some didn't. It didn't make them bad people.
This is true.
We have people in this country who came on a visa and never left.
Right.
So,
Right. And
yes,
go ahead.
But the Asian hate part is like, where is it really coming from and why? Are the people attacking? Are they mentally ill? Or are they just bullies? There are so many questions that are not answered.
And I remember in the 70s, there was the Hong Kong flu, but I can't remember a uptick of crimes against people that were from Hong Kong. I don't recall the president saying, people are dying from this flu. It's terrible. And it all started in Hong Kong. So all Hong Kong people, and making jokes about it. I don't recall that happening. So, Charlie, my question to you is, what does it take to constitute, in your opinion, a hate crime?
Well, I'm gonna talk about it in terms of, we tend to be in various forms very lazy, and we stereotype a whole group of people. Yeah. So, for instance, with the COVID, okay, it appears that possibly it started from China. There was at least perhaps, keyword perhaps, a few people involved, but that's not an indictment of the whole country of China. There's over a billion people there, a billion people. This issue is also kind of personal to me. My first wife is Asian. She's still around. And I met her in graduate school. And while I was in graduate school with her, she achieved her master's and PhD. She then taught as a college professor, computer-based education for 15 years. And the year before we divorced, she also received her American citizenship. She is Chinese from Taiwan. I have been to Taiwan and I met her family and everything. Her father, former father-in-law, was a general in World War II. He lost 7 brothers in the war. And he, of course, fought the Japanese primarily during that. And I heard a few stories. I'm sure there was a lot more. But he and one other sibling were the only ones who survived that war. And then after that, of course, they were fighting the communists and they lost that and they were forced to move to Taiwan in the late 1940s. And some years later, when they opened he had retired from the military, he was a teacher for a while, and he was totally retired. They allowed him to go back to China to see his one surviving brother. He had died 3 days earlier.
Wow.
So, went through quite a lot on that. So this is a personal issue to me as well on that. But it didn't matter if it was the hate crime was Asian, Black, Muslim, whatever. That's appalling and disgusting.
Okay.
Because we do not go and stereotype a whole race. That's very lazy. And I've been guilty of that probably as well. Not at that extent, I hope. But I have been guilty of that as well. But I constantly had to put a stop in my brain and say, no, you can't say that. People are individuals, One race does not necessarily have the same opinion across the board. They will probably have a diverse variety of opinions.
Right.
And some opinions that may even surprise you.
That's correct. And as Karen said, we all have done some things that we may not be proud of. But
right.
I'm going to ask Robert, please unmute yourself, sir. What constitutes, in your opinion, a hate crime?
Ignorance.
Woo.
Ignorance. Yeah, that's all it is. It's an individualized act of aggression. It's not by an organized group, and it can't be, because organized groups usually have information. This is an individual who ran down the street, knocked that lady down the stairs. This is an individual who ran up to that guy and slashed him in the face. This is an individual, whatever color you capture him on film, doing something cowardly and running away. It's not like he stood there and said, come on now. And one of the things that is entrenched in our society is the fact that administrations here in America consider anybody who looks like me being Chinese. It was only 30 years ago. It was only like 30 years ago that they even found out that there was other things besides Chinese and Japanese. So where are you from, China or Japan? No, I'm Hmong, or I'm from Thailand, or I'm Cambodian, or I'm Vietnamese. There is a difference between Cambodian and Vietnamese. Whoa, brother.
Oh yes, it is.
Absolutely.
I'm from Formosa, which is now Taiwan. I'm from Hong Kong. These things. I'm Mongolian. Whoa, what do I do with that? Where the hell is Mongolia? Ain't you all Chinese? We passed 2 acts in the 1800s. The Page Act and the Chinese Exclusivity Act. You got to be Chinese because you look like one of them. We named a hate bill after you. I went, oh, okay, we're all Chinese then, I suppose. So it comes from ignorance. It really, really does. And it leaves you open to not see the next wave of influence coming. So that's what a hate crime is. It's not, it's this Black person that hit this Chinese person, or this Asian. It isn't. It's what's in the back of this person's mind. We're not all social workers, and we're not all trained to know the difference between serial aggression and maybe serial mental health issues. There's a lot of the crimes or acts of aggression, really. Because crimes notes that you are knowingly committing an act that has been legislated as illegal. These guys don't know that.
That's true.
Guarantee.
That is true.
So, in my opinion, a hate crime is just ignorance.
Okay.
A lot of people do not have experiences or knowing, working, friendship, or whatever with people from other cultures, races, and that. And so because they do not know an individual within that race, then they tend to become, as I think the word I use, lazy, and create a stereotype. All Black people are this way, all Asian people, all Chinese people are that way. Because they have no exposure to that. Because they're in their world with their own people. And they do that. I've been personally lucky enough to have, as I mentioned, experiences with other groups of people here, and I hope I'm the better for that, because it was a very eye-opening experience.
And to piggyback on what Robert just said, the graphic videos of elderly Asians getting attacked, the shooting of 6 women of Asian descent in Atlanta earlier this year, started a conversation about how do you prosecute somebody? What do you need to do? The attorneys were talking about how do you prosecute somebody for a quote unquote hate crime? The logical answer, and I've been looking at this for months. The most logical answer I found is that you've got to drill down into the background of that individual. You have to see where this person came from. What was their intent and why? You know, some people just do things because they're assholes. There's an opportunity to hit somebody. I'm going to take that opportunity. Okay.
Right.
But then there's those that have been planning for a while, that they have serious, as Robert used the Southern drawl, they have serious hate against you. And I'm going to hate you forever. And no matter what you do, you can do whatever you want to do. I'm going to hate you and yours. So you have to drill down into the background of that individual. Yes, that guy killed 6 Asian women in the spas in Atlanta, but they're trying to figure out, this guy's history. What was his thing about Asian women? What was his thing about spas? Because that was the location, and location is actually one of the things they consider when defining a hate crime bias. It's ethnicity, which includes race and ancestry. There's religion, sexual orientation, disability, gender, of course, gender identity, but they also talk about location. And there's like 46 location types, such as house of worships, sidewalk, home, school, or unknown even is a category. Dan, any thoughts about drilling down into a person's background once they've committed this type of crime?
Sure. I actually think some of it is organized, and it's not just an individual. I think what happens is there are organized groups who put out this propaganda, who put out this hate, which fires up a lone wolf to go do some of these things. For an example, you talk about the Southern example. Poor whites in the South were not oppressed by Black people. They were oppressed by white people, but the people who were oppressing them convinced it was the Blacks' fault. We have with anti-Semitism where they say, oh, there's this group of people who are controlling you. We tell them your relatives are dying because the Asians brought this disease to you. So I think there's actually a very organized hate machine out there. I think it's a very American thing. And when you talk about drilling into the background, you find out this person was part of a white power group, part of a neo-Nazi group, part of some other kind of hate group. Yes, they're ignorant, but they've been taught by people who are doing this very systematically because it gains them power and it gains them influence. And it also deflects what they're doing to everybody and to blame it on a particular group. And this is just something we've always done in our history. I come from a group that's been happened to for thousands of years. So this is, it's always the next group. We always hate the next group, but we always in America have also a racial feature of it. So, the Chinese were brought in to build the railroads in the West, and the Irish were brought in to build the railroads in the East. And then we had a Chinese Exclusion Act, but we didn't have an Irish Exclusion Act. They weren't treated well originally, but they were deemed white after a certain amount of time. This is what we've done in our country for centuries at this point. And it's really finding a way to break that cycle, I think, is really where the nub of the problem is. And it ties exactly into when you're getting into a hate crime, where that person's background is.